everybody. I'm an addict named Kathy. I want to thank God. I always want to thank God. I don't thank God enough. I want to thank you, God, for bringing me here. I want to thank the convention for inviting me. Can y'all hear me? That's a first. I want to thank the convention committee for inviting me here. And I want to start off by sharing something that I want to ask you to get in touch with the God of your understanding. And I ask you to do that because I know that the message comes from God. I know that even after being here a little over 9 years, that I still have a disease of self-centeredness, that I would think that this is my message if I don't set the record straight and get things in order. See, because I know that I suffer from a disease of disorder. I know that. So it's important that I get things in order from the beginning. And I've had like a real busy day. I had to work all day, and then I have children, so I have to get things straight for them before I leave to go anywhere. And I had to come from work, jump on a plane, get here, put stuff in the room, and come up here. So needless to say, I don't feel like I've had order. You hear what I'm saying? So I'm asking you to help me to get some order. Yeah. So that I'm asking you that while I'm sharing, at any time that I'm sharing, any of the experiences that I'm sharing, if you feel my pain, if you feel my joy, if you feel what I'm sharing, would you take that moment to thank the God of your understanding for blessing us with recovery and saving us from hell? See? Because I know, I come to understand through this fellowship, I used to have a really hard time with God. I really didn't want a relationship with God. I think tonight we got the criminals sharing up here. I just wanted to not go to jail. I didn't even have a desire to not use. I had a desire not to get locked up no more. That was the deal. And you were my last hope. You were my last hope. So I come here today to say that even though I wasn't looking for something, I found something. I found something I wasn't looking for because I wouldn't have known to look for it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have known to look for it. I would have settled for much less than what I got. And I'm grateful that you gave me the opportunity to say, just keep coming back. If that's all you want, then that's all you'll get. That's right. And anybody here can get exactly what they want, and you don't have to get no more. You can get just that. But I say to you, just like the theme says to you, that the joy is definitely in the journey, and that you can live beyond your wildest dreams of all that. That if I had to make the list, like they said when I first got clean, make the list of the things that you would like to see you get out of recovery. Just make the list. And then look at the list a year later or 2 years later and see how short you'd have sold yourself. So I've come to terms with understanding that my vision is limited on what opportunities are available for me, of how much more I can grow. And I am so intrigued by the journey that I keep coming back, because I would really like to see where this ends up. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I share about an inside job of recovery. I share about living inside me. Anyone who's heard me share. I share about being inside my own home, being like okay in my own skin. Because that's been a problem for me my whole life. I know you ain't much different. So I'm sharing about, and I want to share something from just for today. I got this book, right? I got this book. I like the literature. I find comfort in the literature. I find relief at very lonely times of despair in the literature. So I share from the literature a lot because it's been my security blanket at times when I couldn't touch another human being. Yeah? It's been a big hug during times of trouble. Right? It's been an umbrella during the storms. So here I share from, and this talks about cluttered spirits, because I'm going to share about the house. It talks about cluttered spirits. It says, now look, this is in the book. It says, it's like having a messy house, right? We could leave so we don't have to see the mess, because we didn't try that one. Or maybe just step over the piles of debris and pretend they are not there. But ignoring the disorder won't make it disappear. In the end, the dirty dishes, the crumb-filled carpet, and the overflowing wastebaskets are still there waiting to be cleaned up. A cluttered spirit is just as hard to live with as a messy house. We always seem to be tripping over yesterday's leavings. Every time we turn around and try to go somewhere, there's something blocking our path. The more we neglect responsibility, the more cluttered our spirits become. And we can't even hire someone to clean up this mess. We have to do the work ourselves. We gain a deep sense of satisfaction when we leave our homes clean and have time to enjoy a bit of sunshine through sparkling windows. So our spirits rejoice at the freedom and truly enjoy our recovery. And once the big mess is cleaned up, all we have to do is pick up after ourselves. And that's what I'm going to share about. I'm going to share about being in the basement, first step of this home, living in the dark. Look, I'm trying to tell you, I showed up here clueless. Clueless. I didn't have any idea what was happening with me. I knew it was real bad, though. My mother used to say, "What is wrong with you?" And I would think, what is wrong with me? I could never quite pinpoint what it was. All I knew is it kept getting worse. All I knew is it kept getting worse. And it was a sad affair. I came to Narcotics Anonymous in 1986 through judicial intervention. Right? I got the nudge from the judge. Probably the only nudge that would have got me to come. God gives us exactly what we need. And I showed up here and was very confused about what was happening, and I didn't listen to what you suggested. And as a result, I used. And the progression took on a form that I was unaware of. I didn't know that the disease puts thoughts and sends messages to me in my own voice. I didn't know that. I used to think that these were good ideas in my head, right? I didn't understand powerlessness and reservations, and I didn't understand any of that stuff. So what happens was, of course, you tell me alcohol was a drug, I couldn't buy it. I like shoot dope. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like one of them people that has a problem with that stuff. You hear what I'm saying? I'm a dope fiend. See? And there was some glamour in that to me. I took prestige in that. You know what I'm saying? Don't call me one of them. And see, there was arrogance and all that in there, even as a dope fiend. Even when you're at the bottom, you still try to find someone to look down on. You hear what I'm saying? So when I didn't believe you, of course, I decided that drinking was an option. What's it saying? How it works says, look, many addicts have been confused about this. But we cannot afford to be confused about this because a lot of us relapse. Alcohol is a drug. I said, no, alcohol is a refreshment. I believed that. I didn't think that was funny. I thought you were giving misinformation. You know, I really didn't. And so I started drinking just to take the edge off sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Just like, just to get refreshed every now and then, right? And the drinking led to taking pills because I hurt my back. And it's okay to take pills if you have a pain, hurt back kind of thing, right? That's legit. Yeah? Right? Well, look, it says it in Moral Be Revealed. The text wouldn't say that if it didn't say it was okay to take medication as prescribed. Now, it goes on to say that we need to be real careful because our bodies don't know the difference between medication prescribed and medication to take to get high. But don't read that part because you can't use them. Okay? Don't read on. I would always read the part that I needed so I could use. So I started taking these perks for my back. Perks, I take narcotics. And the next thing I know, I'm taking a bunch of them, and it's too much money. So my best thinking says, buy a bag of dope, it's cheaper, right? And these are like practical things that we understand are life-threatening, but that's what happens to us. And then the bag of dope turned into, you shouldn't even work your job anymore because you lose money. Why don't you just buy a bundle and sell something? You know what I'm saying? The progression takes over. And before I know it, I'm rationalizing the most outrageous sort of nonsense, right? And everything sounds like a good idea. And before I know it, I find myself, where am I? I'm in the basement. Abscesses all over me. The police got me again. I'm jammed up again. Now look, I've already done 4 years in the penitentiary. I somehow told myself I knew how to sell drugs this time, even though I have numerous felony convictions for not knowing how to sell drugs. Forget the evidence. The evidence is not important. You hear what I'm saying? I live in fantasy now. Evidence doesn't work here. So as a result of that, of course, I'm once again locked up. And see, I remember this clearly because I'm talking about being in the basement, and I'm talking about where you get that hit of the first step, where you get that hit of like that when it talks about the moment of clarity, when we can no longer lie to ourselves about who we are and what's happening. You know, I had them moments of clarity. I'd get scared and just like move as quick as I could to get away from them. But this time I'm sitting in front of my PO, and she is telling me, Kath, look, you did it again. And I'm like, I know, I did it again. I know. Well, look, what are we going to do here? She goes and gets the supervisor. It's because it gets real. The more people that come, the more real it starts to get. You know what I mean? It's like I might think she's going to like slide it under the covers, but now the big guy's there. And he says, look, you got two choices. You either go back to jail or you go to treatment. What do you want to do? So I think about it. and this is a sad affair because I think about it and I look up and I'm like, there's tears in my eyes because I've reached a point where I'm starting to really feel the devastation, right? Like, oh no, not again. You know when the vicious cycle comes round again? You know, and around again, it's like, oh no, not again. You know, I've been in some relationships like that. Oh no, not again. And I say to her, how much time do I have to do? And the reason I say that is I say that because I have come to the conclusion by now that nothing's going to change me. It's no sense going to treatment because treatment's failed miserably on this addict. I've pretty much bought into the lie. And that's what happens, jails, institutions, and death. I was clear on that. You're going to wind up doing time, and you're going to do time until you die. And that's the way that this life is, and that's what you're going to have to do. And even bought into the possibility that doing time was probably the only thing that was going to save my life. Because at least I was safe away from me whenever I was there. So I bear watching. You hear what I'm saying? I bear watching. And I started to believe that that was my sanctuary. That was the only place that was going to keep me right. And even there, I wasn't quite right. You know what I mean? But I wasn't totally bizarre where I was on the street. And it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs to be in where you know what I mean? Where I bought into, look, I'm never going to change. This is just the way I am. This is the way it's going to be. Medicine, religion, psychiatry, and jail was not sufficient. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. And she refused to send me back to jail. She sent me to treatment. I think that was the punishment, to be truthful. she sent me to treatment, and I remember going to treatment, and this is where I kind of got in touch with my first step, because I started to realize that there was a possibility that I could not use, and I got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous, right? I got put out of treatment. Look, I've been put out of everywhere you could ever be put out of. I have been put out of the penitentiary even. I got to go to a halfway house, and I didn't want to go because I was cool where I was, and I just wanted to finish out the time, and they put me out into the halfway house. Look, I don't like change no matter what it is. You see, so when I'm in this treatment facility, I get put out of there. Not for doing nothing wrong, but they said I was compliant but complacent. Like, they gotta use big words too, so I really don't know why I'm getting put out. You know what I mean? And what it was they believed that I was programmed slick, that I could talk the talk, but I wasn't walking the walk, right? And you know, nobody knows that, but only us and God.
That's right.
You hear what I'm saying? And what happened was, in the basement, I started to realize that, look, I can't live like this anymore. You feel like, anybody feel the point of reaching where, you know, the using ain't working no more, and it's a job now. You know what I mean? It's not fun anymore. It hasn't been fun for a long time. And it's now a job, and I'm tired, and I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore, right? I can't, look, I've had enough. I've had enough. I can't do it. There's a surrender that takes place there. You hear what I'm saying? Drugs no longer become the first choice. You know, it's like, give me anything else to work with here. I need some help, big time. And what happens in the second step is I get introduced to Narcotics Anonymous, little glimmers of hope. Every one of you, I think a Swansea rode me to the airport, and she had a button in her car that says, be a star and shine through someone's darkness. And I thought to myself, we're all kind of stars in a dark sky for every addict who's searching for a little direction. And that's what you were for me, is that I was in the dark, and you were a little bit of light for me to help me along the way. Now, I grant you, I was very baffled by you and your language. I didn't understand you at all. You know, a lot of like self-centeredness, self-obsession, self this. I was like, holy self. I really couldn't understand what, you know, you talked, and I knew you were addicts, but you weren't talking street stuff. You understood me, but I didn't understand you. And I got a little curious about that. That was some of what kept me coming back, was like there's a code of some kind going on here. I wanted to like break the code, you know? And I had a really hard time understanding a lot of things. It was funny because a lot of times, I don't know if you notice a newcomer or children. My children do this a lot, where I'll say things and my kid will go, huh? And I spent my first year in Narcotics Anonymous going, huh? Like, what did he just say? Because I didn't understand. And I was sitting in a meeting the one day, and the guy's in the meeting, it's a 7-step meeting, and he shares, it gets to be his turn, and he says, I hear you people talking about shortcomings. He said, I assume that's premature ejaculations, and I don't have any of those, so I don't have to worry about them being removed. And I thought, thank God someone else doesn't know what's going on here either. Thank God. Because I was really, and I was scared to say that I was that confused. You know what I'm saying? So I started doing what you told me to do. You said, get a sponsor, get a home group, get phone numbers, and I started doing the basics kind of stuff. But I was still I hadn't talked to people on the phone other than, you got it, what's to it, where can we meet kind of thing like that. It wasn't like, oh, hello, and how are you today? Like that was not happening where I was at. And so I didn't know how to talk to people. And especially because my communication skills had been reduced to such an animal level, right, that addicts have our own kind of like sign language. It might start off first with like, well, who's got it, what's to it, and where they at? And then eventually it's like, who's, like this happens, and you let me know, and I'm like, and you go like there, and, and I say, well, like, what's to, what's to it, and you say it's bumping, right? So it was like our own sign language, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't even talk a whole lot anymore, you know what I mean? It wasn't necessary to even talk. Now you're saying, call people up on the phone and talk to them. Like, what do you say? What do you say when you call people up to talk to them? So a friend of mine, we were both so embarrassed and kind of scared to talk to people that we came up with this thing where we'd call people up on the phone, and I would say, and this is for the newcomer who's scared to call somebody, I'd call people up on the phone and I'd say, well, my sponsor said, I always blame shit on my sponsor. I wanted to get out of a relationship and I didn't know how to get out. I'd say, my sponsor said, I don't need to bother with you. I have to, you know what, my sponsees do it now, so it goes around, comes around. I say to him, my sponsor said I'm supposed to call 3 recovering addicts a day. Do you qualify? And the person on the other end of the phone would start laughing, like they'd think, then they'd stop and get serious and think. And they'd say, yeah, I qualify. And I would say, well, could you state your qualifications? And they would say, well, I went to a meeting today. I prayed this morning. I didn't pick up the first one. I called my sponsor. I started learning what I needed to do in order to be in recovery. You started sharing with me what you would do, and I just did what you did. Look, that's how I got in this mess in the first place. You know what I mean? I figured if you help me get in it, you're going to help me get out of it. And I just followed suit with you. I just started following with you. Whatever you did, I did. And I pretty much followed the people that looked reasonably happy. You know what I mean? I really didn't try to follow those that looked quite miserable and disgusted. You know? I thought there was some importance to that, because I didn't get in recovery to be miserable. So I started doing that and got some help, and then come the third step, and this was not an easy step for me because I didn't, like I said, want a relationship with God, and I wasn't very interested in God. My mother is a God-fearing, God-praying, God-lover kind of person, right? When I used to go to the penitentiary, she would even send me like those prayer cards and stuff. I was raised very religious. I disconnected. You know what I mean? I disconnected. And I remember her sending me cards when I was in the penitentiary on this saint that was for a saint. They got saints for all kind of stuff. It was a saint for hopeless cases. And I thought, now why would she want to hook me up with that crew? You know what I mean? Of all the crews to hook me up, don't hook me with that crew. And she used to pray all the time for me to get help. And I really think her prayers were answered because I got hooked up with the crew, right? I still got them anyways because we were a bunch of hopeless cases. You know what I'm saying? I was like a hopeless dope fiend. You hear what I'm saying? I was a hopeless, hope to die dope fiend. It was no longer like that anymore. I was starting to get a glimmer of hope and starting to say, okay, look, if you said get a God, then I better get a God. Whatever you say do, I better do it. My life is on the line. Since day one, since I came to Narcotics Anonymous, it has never been about, if you feel like it, on a good day, if it sounds like a good idea. It has been like, do this or you will die. Here? Do this or you're going to die. This has never been like, maybe I'll work 6 steps or 3 or... No, you better do 12 and you better look at the traditions, and when the concepts come out, you better check them too, because you need all the help you can get or you're going to die. And as long as I keep that attitude, I stay open to receive. So I started looking into God and started to pull pieces of God from people sharing. And started God doesn't give you more you can handle. God doesn't close one door without opening another. God is good all the time. God didn't bring you this far to say psych. Huh? I started putting pieces together. And here's what happened. At about 1.5 years clean, I got married at 1 year clean. About 1.5 years clean, I had twins. They came early. 2 pounds, 13 ounces. My daughter was okay, but my son was on a ventilator and everything. He was real sick, right? I threw a blood clot in my lung and I was real sick. My husband used. Same time, my husband used. I used to go to intensive care to see my son. I have another daughter, an older daughter. So my son's like my baby boy. You know what I mean? And I'd go into intensive care to see him, and
I would put my hands in the incubator and I would touch him and I would talk to him. And they would say, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. He's real sick. And when I would touch him, he would jump because they had so many needles in him, and he would be afraid somebody was going to hurt him. And he couldn't keep formula done, and he would throw it up, and he got a staph infection, and every day it would get worse and worse and worse. And my mother would say, Kathy, please don't get attached to that baby, because that baby's not going to make it. And there was something inside of me that just didn't believe that. And I just believed that I had to touch him, and I had to let him know that he was loved, and I had to let him know that I cared so much about him. But every day he would get sicker and sicker and sicker. And I used to pray every day, God, look, God, you have a whole lifetime with him. You have eternity to share with this little boy. Can't you please just share a little bit of his life with me? Can I just have a little bit? Please, God, come on. God, come on if you got any mercy. God, please. And I would cry every day that he got sicker. I'd be like, God, come on, you can't be like that selfish. God? And every day he would get sicker. I finally reached a point where after about 5 days, I saw how sick he was getting. And I prayed to God one night, and I said, hey, God, I think I understand this. If my son's living would be too painful for him, then take him now, God. Because I don't want my son to struggle living just because of my own selfish motives. So God, I believe that you know what's best. I believe that you do what's best for everybody. And I understand that you have the well-being of all of us in your hands. I started to understand that. I started making the decision, you hear what I'm saying? To get a God of my understanding. That I could turn my will, my choices in my life over to someone who really, I truly believed had my best in their hands. You hear what I'm saying? Next day I get up, my son is off the ventilator. He's off the ventilator. He's thriving, right? Now he's had his share of problems. He's got real thick glasses, you know, and he can't breathe real well. He has asthma. But this little boy's spirit has the spirit of an angel. He finds goodness in everybody, everywhere. He does nice things for no reason at all. Even when his nasty little sister's mean to him, he's still just as kind as he can be to her. He tells me out of nowhere that I'm beautiful. He tells me out of nowhere, Mama, I love you. I believe I was blessed by God. And that's what I started to understand about the third step. Then comes 4. We're taking the steps up out of the basement. Here comes 4. We're going to search through the house. We're doing an inventory. Why? I seem to have lost myself. Check this out. This is really good. This is about the 4th step. Using addicts are a confused and confusing bunch of people. It's hard to tell from one minute to the next what they're doing or what they're going to be. Usually the addict is just as confused as anybody else. Because we psych ourselves out. With the masks that we wear, we don't even know that we're doing them. I had so many masks that I'd take one off and there was one under it and I thought that was me. That's how many times I tricked myself. It says if we want to find out I want to find out who I am, I'll have to look to see who I've been and who I want to be. That's right. So that's what I'm doing it for. I'm searching in 4 to find out who I was, what happened, and now who I want to be. So that, you know, some of the stuff got to go and some of it can stay. So I start seeing pieces of me. When I was a little girl, I used to try to, I always would get money for affection. You know what I'm saying? I always, rather than people spend time with me, they would pay me money because nobody really had a lot of time. So I used to take the money and pay people to spend time with me. I always bought friends. Always. I always paid money rather than giving of myself because it was less vulnerable. It was less risky. If I just gave you money, it doesn't hurt as much than if I give you my feelings. You hear what I'm saying? So I learned at an early age to do that. By the time I hit my teens, it became real important for me to get affection. I felt very much neglect, right? My mother's not a hugger. She's not at a very young age. If a baby's not nurtured, it dies. You hear what I'm saying? My spirit was dying within. So what I did was, by the time I started hitting my teens, I started settling for sex when I really wanted love. Because I just wanted somebody to touch me. I wanted someone to hold me. And if that meant that I had to have sex in order for that to happen, I compromised that. Just so I didn't have to be alone. You hear what I'm saying? Just so I didn't have to be alone. By the time I was a woman, all that stuff stopped working. None of that stuff was the money stuff and the buying stuff and the sex stuff. It wasn't working anymore. By the time I reached a woman, I no longer believed I was worthy of love. I no longer believed anybody wanted to be with me. The loneliness and the fear of loneliness was so consuming that I went on a mission of self-destruction. A bag at a time, a pill at a time, a drink at a time. I went on a mission of self-destruction to prove that that was true. And I slowly killed myself. And that's what happened to me in 4. I could see those pieces of me, why I did what I did, what's underneath all that stuff. I'm talking about reaching 5 and turning the lights on in the house. What's the exact nature? What's the exact nature? What's up under all that stuff that makes me do what I do? Bring it to the light. You got to admit it. Say it. Say it out loud. Say it. Make it real. You hear? Make it real. I started to see that my fear of loneliness, that my fear of rejection, that my fear of being abandoned or neglected, that my fear caused me to run down the road of self-destruction. But I would never admit it, because if I don't say it, it ain't real. You hear what I'm saying? I remember getting arrested a lot of times, saying, why don't you just admit it? Take it to the grave. I don't care if there's 16 people testifying, they got me on tape. I don't care. It's not me. Not me. No. See, you know, it's really funny. I'm like financially strapped right now because I live beyond my means. Hear what I'm saying? So my little girl comes to me and she says to me, this is the reality checker. She comes to me and she says to me, Mom, I want one of them little computer pet things, right? I know, I didn't want to endorse. So I say to her, I don't have the money, because straight up I don't have the money, and I got twins. If you buy one, you got to buy the other one, right? So I say, I don't have the money. She says, Mom, are we poor? Now, I don't like poor. That does not suit me well. You hear what I'm saying? That's like a reality hit that, no, I don't think I like poor, right? So I said to her, no, we're not poor, we're budgeted. So look, the little girl makes the face like the newcomer face, you know? What did she just say? But see, she don't care because she's little. She'll ask, well, Mom, what's budgeted? I says, well, like, budgeted is when you have money, but you can't spend it. And she's still very confused. She's trying to digest this stuff. And I go back to cooking dinner, and she says, Mom, just say it. We're poor. You hear what I'm saying? I don't want to be poor. I don't want poor. You know what I mean? Let somebody else share that story. I don't want to share that story. But if I don't say it, it's not real. And if it's not real, I'm not accountable to change it. So if I don't admit, I won't change.
And if I don't bring it to the light, I'll live in the dark. I heard a guy saying today, I was at a seminar, he says, terrorists thrive in the dark. I was like, ow. Ow, because that's what I was. I was a terrorist. I created terror everywhere I went. I terrorized my own life for decades. I don't want to be my own worst fear anymore. I don't want to not be able to look in the mirror anymore. And I'm not just talking about active addiction. There's been plenty of times in recovery I couldn't look myself in the face because I was so ashamed of what I was doing, or the way I was living. But if I don't admit it, it will not change. Then comes the 6-step, lights are on. Of course, there's a mess in here. Requires a little bit of time. You might have to sit down and get your breath to get entirely ready on this one. What happens in 6 is, I had this happen last year, and then this happened again. So I'm going to share about it because I have trouble working past resentments. Does anybody relate? Okay, so what happens is, my twin's father, sponsor, right? I'm at the convention, our convention. Oh, forget it. I'm at the convention, and my twin's father, sponsor, made a comment about me. We're talking like character assassination time. Oh yeah, it's real easy to practice principles till the shit hits the fan, right? Now, I've been doing pretty good with anger because lust was really kicking my ass. And everybody does understand that these defects gangbang you, I hope you know that. They don't play fair. They come in groups. You know what I'm saying? They come in groups. And if you become aware of one, it'll back up and let somebody else move in. It does have no problem with that. No problem whatsoever, right? So I'm doing really good, and all of a sudden the anger slides me, kind of thing, right? And what happens is a guy comes up to me at our convention, and he's a Jamaican guy, good friend of mine. He says, Kati, Louis said something so nasty about you that if I were you, I'd go slap him in the face. Now, I respect this guy's recovery. You hear what I'm saying? So if he says that, it must have really been something nasty. But I'm trying to practice principles, so I say, well, Louie's not a fan club member of mine. You know what I'm saying? That's fair. And he said, yeah. He says, I figured that because I told him that I'm telling Kati what you said, and he said, fuck Kati. No, not that. Not that. You know what I mean? I can handle, so he said something, but fuck Kathy? That's they're fighting words. That's like oh, fuck Kathy, all right then, we'll see about that. And look, it started coming up, right? Now I figured I better hurry up and go do what I was doing and get out of here because I'm in trouble. I know when I'm in trouble. I can feel it coming up in me. You know what I'm saying? Now there's an opportunity there to ask God to remove it. There's an opportunity to... Now you got to do it with the quickness, though. Because it'll kick in real fast if we don't. So I start saying, God, I'm in trouble, God, I'm in trouble. Please help me to get back to where I was. And I start to go where I'm going. And he says, Kati, there goes Louis P. right there. And before I know it, I'm in front of Louis P. I did not make a conscious decision to do that. You need to know this. I was still fighting within myself with, God, I'm in trouble, I don't want to do this, God, help me. And my body left and went there without the rest of me. It was not a conscious decision. I'm in front of Louis P. and I said, well, Anthony said you said something so nasty about me that I should slap you in your face. I'm in his face. And he gets all nervous and starts jumping because he knows I'm good to go. You can tell I'm good to go. You know what I mean? And look, he starts jumping around and everything and without my permission. Now, I'm not saying I'm not responsible. I'm saying that I'm not making these decisions with clear thought. You hear what I'm saying? I like being controlled by a power greater than myself. It's a destructive power that's taken over here. I noticed that Louis P. standing with his back to 2 flights of steps. I don't want to know this information. It's just being passed on to me. You know what I mean? Something saying if you just bump him and roll, he's checked. He won't talk about you no more. And you can just go on about your business. I am struggling. God, please help me. God, I'm in trouble. God, please help me. God, I'm in trouble. And all of a sudden, some guy says to me, hey, Kathy, you got a pair of trunks. Now, check it out. I'm at a ski resort. It's snowing. It was so absurd to ask me, did I have a pair of swimming trunks? That I turned to ask him what was up with that. He said his nephew needed them. I said, well, there's a boutique right there. I'm sure you can get, because I like kids, you know. And I look back, and guess what? Well, he's gone, right? God will remove the whole situation. All you're going to do is, God, please help me. God, I'm in trouble. God, help. It doesn't take much. It's not like you have to say all these wild prayers or anything. It's just a conscious effort to know that I'm aware enough that I don't have the power. Right? That I don't have the power. But no. Here comes 7. And so I didn't jump on him, which is usually my MO, because I even told myself that he was small. I could take him. So what happens in 7 is I decide, well, I didn't jump on him, so I did good, but I'm going to hold on to the resentment, and I still have to teach him a lesson. 7 is like whenever I realize that the garbage is removed, I tend to call it back for reconciliation. You know what I mean? Let's see if maybe I can make this work in another way, just clean it off a little bit, right? So what I do is I hold the resentment, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to check him. He must be checked. Do you understand this? This is you cannot permit this to go on. If you do, there will be grave harm done to me. You hear what I'm saying? He really needs to know who he's messing with.
That's right.
So I tell my sponsees, he said something really nasty. I don't even know what he said. I'm going around, I'm character assassinating him now. Do you ever notice that how whenever somebody does something that I don't like and I hold the resentment, I turn into them? How does that happen? It's the humility. Check it out. It's the humility hit. It's the humility hit. So you think you're all that? Well, look, you're all this. So I start doing the character assassinating stuff, and I'm going to go to his home group, and I'm going to give him some choices. Here, Louie, you can either do this. You can either put me on your 8-step list. You can do a 10-step now. Or you could blow the whole program off like you've been doing for the past 10 years. Oh, is that nasty? That's what's going on in my head, though, right? And I'm riding down the street saying, God, please, I don't want to be like this. God, please help me. I'm tired of being like this. I'm tired of living miserable. You know what I'm saying? I'm tired of renting space in my head to do harm to myself and others. I'm tired of my spirit being disconnected from the goodness. God, can you help me out here? Right? And all of a sudden, I'm riding past the church, and the marquee in front of the church says, those who throw dirt lose ground.
Boy, girl.
I was like, let it go. Let it go. And then here comes and 8, of course, is the amends step. And the house is cleaned up now, but nobody visits. Nobody comes by because I did so much harm to so many people. Well, recently my mother, I talked to my mother on the phone. I used to have a big resentment that my mother was never home. She worked and, I was by myself a lot. And I recently changed jobs because I was talking on the phone to my mother. And I always believed she didn't care. You know, my mother's pretty much, you got to do what you got to do. Don't cry about it. Just do it. You know what I mean? That's how she is. Resentment queen of the world, this woman. So I called my mother up and I said, I'm trying to get this new job because I feel really bad. And she says, what's wrong? And I said, like, my little girl comes home from school. And when she comes home from school, she tries to fix her hair. And when she fixes it, it's all messed, clumped up and stuff. And then she puts all this spray on top to make it stay down. And it looks like a nest. Right? Look, like white people's hair looks all like nesty and shit when you do that. And I felt so bad because, look, she looked unkept. You hear what I'm saying? She looked like one of them kids you'd see where you'd say, I can't believe her mother let her leave the household. And I started feeling bad because I remember my oldest daughter, her going to school like that because I was using and I couldn't get it together. And she would walk long distances in the snow with no breakfast, nobody combing her hair, that it'd be all knotted up in the back and you couldn't even get nothing to go through because I wasn't taking care of her. And I felt that. And I said, Ma, I want to get this other job so I can be home in the morning. I want to fix her hair, Ma.
I want to fix her hair. And I started crying because I want to fix her hair. I want to be there for them when they leave in the morning. I want to say, have a good day and I love you. I wanted somebody to do that so bad for me. I want to do it for my kids. My mother says to me, I cried many a day walking to the bus stop because I had to leave you. I never knew that. I never knew that. I never knew she loved me that much, that it hurt that much to have to leave me. I felt the love that I was missing all those years from that one conversation. I no longer resented her for leaving me. I no longer resented me for not caring for my oldest daughter. And I finally felt the love that I was looking for all my life from my mother. My mother loves me. You hear what I'm saying? And here comes 10, and 10 says just to keep the house clean. Pick up after yourself as you go along. And I try to do that. I haven't told this story for, well, you know what, I won't tell that one. Because this one's recent. Yeah, it's easy to talk about the old shit. I just recently went to Milwaukee a couple weeks. Oh, God, I broke out in a sweat on this one. I recently went, hey, when you got to get honest about the recent stuff, it gets a little shaky up here. I recently went to Milwaukee a couple weeks ago. Now wait, I'm doing really good. You need to know this. I'm doing really good. I'm practicing principles. I'm doing the next right thing. I'm helping others. I'm not like stealing, cheating, lying extremely. You know what I mean? I'm like on the money. I'm doing good, right? And I'm feeling good about doing good. I'm connected to God and life is good and people are swell and you know what I'm saying? And then, I have been abstinent. We're talking sex, for about 7 months. This was not a conscious decision to do this. You know what I'm saying? Look, if you'd say to me, I've been abstinent for 5 months from sex, my first thought would be, why? You hear? Why would you even want to do that? But for 7 months, I haven't been sexually active, okay? So, and I feel good because I no longer look for sex to fulfill my need for love. You hear what I'm saying? I mean, it's a bonus if that happens, but it's not a requirement anymore. It doesn't work anymore. I burn it out. So wait a minute, I get a telephone call, and this guy on the phone happens to be an ex-relationship that was a long-distance, hot and heavy relationship, right, that I violated, and he took off, right? Never got to make amends to this guy. Wouldn't have it. He wouldn't even talk to me. All of a sudden, he calls me up on the phone. He's going to be a special worker there. I'm doing good. You hear what I'm saying? I'm doing good. I'm on the money. Get the phone call rings, right? And I hear the voice. You know what I mean? It's that voice from the past, you know, the hot and heavy voice. And he says, baby. He says, baby, so like baby. And he says, baby, look, makes you just like knees get weak and stuff, baby stuff. And he says, look, I'm going to be in Milwaukee. I'm like, you know, doing this, and this. They want you to do a speaker thing there. Why don't you come to Milwaukee for the weekend? We'll spend the weekend together, you and me. We'll have a one. I miss you so much. Why don't you come and we'll just spend some time together? I say, okay. And I hang up the phone. Well, wait a minute. The 10th step does not permit this. Because what happens in 10 is we start to see ourselves in 3D. Oh, look, it says in the 10th step that we have to, right, monitor. It says monitor. Our feelings, our emotions. Look, this is the kicker. Our fantasies. Like, no, not the fantasies. Can I have something? Right? Our fantasies and our actions. So after I hang up the phone, I say, what did you just do? What did you just do? If you go back into this relationship, you were very unhappy, It started off good and it ended up bad. You were very unhappy. It was weekend rendezvous at conventions in the end. And now he's calling you, offering you the same thing, and you're saying, okay. You know this is not what you want. You know this is not what you're looking for. And I had to call him back up, tell him, look, I'm not willing. I'm not willing to live life like that. I'm not willing to settle for less. I'm not willing to go for like the okey doke. I won't have it anymore. Either you come with it all or don't come at all. He didn't come at all. Which is cool, you know what? Because here comes the 11th step, and now I find that God's within. God's no longer an outside enterprise. You hear what I'm saying? God's within me, that in my home dwells God. I don't look for the answers outside, I search within. I find a love within. You hear what I'm saying? I've started to learn unconditional love. I treat people with respect and regard. I'm no longer expecting something from you when I do something. That's not my nature. You hear what I'm saying? I've learned to love as a result of it. And what happens is, in the 11th step, my husband came back home and we tried to reconcile. And he used again. Sucks, man. He used again. And I used to pray every day, God, look, please help my family to live in harmony. Please, God, help us. And he went back to the penitentiary. He's back in the penitentiary now. And I've come to terms with understanding that when it says in the 11th step, when you pray for God's will, that you know you're going to get what you need, regardless if you think it's for the best. And I have come to terms with believing, just like with my son, God, do whatever it is that needs to be done for the good of everybody. And if it means separating from us, then let that be so he can get what he needs, because without that, we cannot be a family. Whatever means necessary, God, I'm with you. I trust you. I have faith in you. I was riding in a plane from Texas. I'm looking out the window. The pilot says, we're getting ready to land. I look out the window, it's all clouds. There's no land in sight. I say to the guy next to me, do you see land? He says, no, I don't see land. Where are we landing? He says, I don't know. Then it dawns on me, I don't need to see land. I'm not flying the plane. All that's important is that the pilot sees land. That a lot of times in recovery, I'm in the clouds. I can't see solid ground. I'm not sure that it's there, but I know, look, I know that the pilot sees solid ground. And I trust the pilot with my life. Here comes 12, and 12 is a pass it on. My grant sponsor was Dot T. She's passed away. And she used to always share about the importance of passing it on. My son has a good philosophy of the 12th step. He talks about family. He says, Mom, you know, we have to look out for the little ones, he says. See, he's 7. He's talking about the 3-year-olds and stuff. You gotta look, he said, we gotta look out for the little ones, you know, because they don't know too much. And we wouldn't want anything to happen to them. That's what the 12 steps about. And I'm going to close with a poem that my grant sponsor used to share. It's about passing it on and helping the newcomer. It says, an old man traveling a lone highway came in the evening, cold and gray, to a valley, deep and wide, through which was flowing a rippling tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. That rippling stream held no fear for him, and he turned when he reached the other side to build a bridge to span the tide. Old man, cried a cynical voice from near, you're wasting your time building here. Your journey's over. It's the end of the day. Why build a bridge to span the way? The man raised up his old gray head. Good friend, this road I've traveled, he said. There followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. And this stream which was difficult for me, for that fair-haired boy may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him. Thanks for listening.